Welcome to the Stress Free Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Block. As always, I want to inspire, entertain, and educate you on the best tools and technologies out there. My goal is to help make your practice and career more profitable, efficient, and most importantly, more enjoyable. And check out all of my nonfiction and children's books on Amazon, and check out the stressfreedentist.com for any upcoming events. And if you're feeling you're a dental professional that's burnt out, or you just feel stuck or want to get to that next level, visit the International Academy of Dental Life Coaches, or www.iadlc.com, and we'll get you matched up with a life coach that understands dentistry. I also wanted to thank our amazing sponsor, Equa Marketing. They have helped me and my practice over the years to improve with SEO and website performance. And to find out how you can make your practice dominate in your area, go to www.equa.com/MSMSFD to book your complimentary meeting. Again, that's www.ekwa.com/MSMSFD. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode. And today I'm joined by Eric Applesies and Alex Kantor of justacoupleofdentists.com. They got an awesome podcast, and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us. Yeah, I know we're trying to get in the podcast game just like you. How is it? Is it worth it?
It's, once, you start to do it, you do it a few times. My take is I always get guests that are smarter and more interesting than me. And that makes for a much better episode. That's why I have the two of you on, because you're more interesting.
You're going to be surprised. This one's going to be the opposite for all our listeners. Eric's smarter than we are.
Did I get that right? Coupleofdentists.com or justacoupleofdentists.com?
Yeah, so to make it confusing, our podcast is Just a Couple of Dentists, but the URL is coupleofdentists.com.
Gotcha. And now both of you are dentists. You're married and to each other. Tell me, just give me a little backstory, origin story on how both of you decided to even go to dental school.
Yeah, well, I mean, mine's, pretty typical. I grew up in Canada, so I'm Canadian, and my dad was a lawyer. So it was pretty much I either could go into law with him or something else, and it was probably being a doctor or something like that. And just went through school and then thought, well, I kind of don't want to be in school forever and I want to make some money. So let's go ahead and do this dentistry route because I really didn't want to become a lawyer. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I did and went to Indiana University, and that's where I met Eric.
Yeah. I mean, on my end, I think mine probably just came from like a little bit of inherent laziness that I have. So like I remember like in college when I was deciding what I wanted to do, I think my parents were always like, just do like none of my parents did healthcare or anything like that. But they were like, do that because it's like stable, right? Like you're always gonna need doctors and dentists and all that stuff. So I remember shadowing doctors and dentists and being like, oh, the lifestyle of a dentist is so much better. Like everyone gets Fridays off. What's this? I didn't know golf. I still don't. So I feel like I'm behind on being I'm not a legit dentist yet. But yeah, I think I was kind of deciding, like, I think I was just ingrained in me, like, do something in healthcare. And then I was like, oh, well, dentists seem to have a lot better like lifestyle than like doctors. And like Alex said, you don't have to be in school till you're 34 or 35 before you like start actually earning income. So I mean, that was it. I wish I had a better story.
I think, golf is kind of, a lot of people play golf. Ultimately, we're all going to end up playing pickleball. It's just a matter of time.
Well, yeah, I think that's, yeah.
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 And now, did you both went to Indiana University Dental School?
Yep.
And then from there, are you still in Indiana, or where do you live now?
Oh, we're in Denver now. So I did the military. I signed up and did like the HPSP scholarship in the military. So when I graduated, I went up by where you are at. Well, I don't know. I don't know the East Coast that well, but Rhode Island, is that close to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's about a little less than an hour.
Yeah, we were in Newport, Rhode Island. It was where Officer Development School was. So I went there for like 5 or 6 weeks, and then I got stationed out in Camp Pendleton, so like just north of San Diego. She followed me out there because we thought like, I'm from Indiana and she's from Canada, and we are like, oh, SoCal, right? Like it's the OC. Let's move there. This is gonna be sweet. And then When I was stationed there, that's when she bought a practice in Orange County.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, just for us, a couple of years after that, we were just like, yeah, I don't know if like long term this is where we want to be. So when my commitment was done in the military, that's when we moved to Denver, and so that's where we're at now.
And Eric, what was your experience like in the military, being a, after dental school, going into the military and doing dentistry in the military?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I definitely gained an appreciation for the military that I didn't have. Like I had a grandpa that was in, but I didn't really talk to him much about it. And where I was at, I grew up like kind of closer to Chicago, more like a suburb kid. And so there weren't a lot of like I don't know anyone from my high school that went the military route. So I didn't have a lot of experience with vets, military people. And so I love the aspect of just getting to learn more about the military. And I gained a ton of respect for people who were getting paid next to nothing and like putting their lives on the line when I was just a dentist there, right? So like I gained a lot of respect for people on that. I probably well, I know I could have been a better like officer, right? I think I was more focused on all right, when I get out, I'm gonna start my own practice. So looking back, I probably wish I would have spent more time like volunteering for things or getting involved in the military more, but because I think I kind of always had one foot out the door, like I can't wait to start my own practice. I didn't give it 100%. So that's a regret that I wish um, I would have changed if I could have. But overall, it was great. Like I didn't do an AEGD or a GPR, so I just went straight in and but I worked at a clinic where all the AEGD residents were. So there was a perio, there was two oral surgeons, there was an endodontist, there was a prosthodontist. Like I got exposure for I pretty much got like a mini residency for free and was around all these people that were specialists. So it was awesome from that standpoint, just to like hone your skills in. So that was pretty cool.
And Alex, what about yourself? After dental school, did you do AEGD, a GPR? Did you go right into private practice?
Yeah, right into private practice. I was an associate for about a year, a little less than a year, with a great office. It was busy. I was pretty much part-time with multiple associates there, but like just had great patient flow. And I made a lot of money with that office, like a lot of production. I was exposed to a lot of things. And it was a really well ran office. So I got to learn some things too that I could, again, I'm like also one foot out the door a little bit looking for, the next practice that we could buy. Um, so yeah, it set me up for, I think, success with our future practices.
And then from there, you said you associated about a year, and then after that, did you do your first startup?
That's when I bought a practice from a retiring dentist, and
Mm.
that was county. One of those, like dying practices, was doing like 300,000 a year. He was like referring a lot of things out. He was sick, so he really couldn't do a lot. But yeah, just kind of came in and was able to flip it. Like saw a lot of opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of a lot of other things with that practice too.
Yeah, we have a whole episode. Like, so if anyone wants to listen to 50 minutes of us talking about that,
about
we
all
can
the
do that.
mistakes that we made with that office. But yeah, had that office for a couple years, and then we were like, California is just not for us.
Hmm.
Like great to visit, tough to live here. We weren't living by the beach or anything like that. I had an hour and a half commute each way um, to work to my office, so that just kind of took a toll. But after that, we were like, okay, where do we want to go? And that's when we decided, okay, let's go to Colorado. We'll set up, we'll do a startup. So I was still in California doing the startup. Um, and they were doing construction and stuff like that while we were finishing up and you were finishing up your military.
Yep.
So, and I actually came out to Denver like before, like I was out here for
Yeah, we were
months.
stuck. We were apart for like 3 or 4 months when I
Yeah.
was finishing up the military and her startup was getting ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just joined her.
And you were actually able to sell the practice in California, and then transition over to the one in Colorado.
Yeah. So it all worked out.
Yeah.
That commute it sounds exhausting. I used to do the same thing. And it's something, maybe, when you're first getting out, you got to do what you got to do to get a job. But after a while, commuting like that to me was just absolutely draining. And now I live and work in the same town, and my commute's like 7 minutes. So I would not trade that for the world. Um,
I
and
know, because like much like that hour and a half, I would listen to multiple podcasts. So this is the days of like dental hacks and like when Gary
Thriving
Takacs,
dentist and
when Gary Takacs was like starting and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like one podcast there, one podcast back. And I learned so much by listening to those guys. And it was awesome. Like I thought I was getting like my MBA in the car. Like it was amazing. So like I really, you know, appreciated, you know, although it sucked, you know, to have to drive that long, but I thought might as well fill it up with things that, you know, it's gonna
might as well make the best of it, right?
The best of it, exactly.
And then after, tell me about the startup in Colorado.
Oh yeah, we went through some. Well, Alice can start with hers, but we went through some.
I mean,
fun
typical
stuff.
startup. Yeah, typical startup. I mean, took a little bit longer than usual. You know, we were supposed to open, I think, in March, and we didn't open until May. But you know, and slow startup with you know, you got your 2 patients that you see on day 1, you know, kind of thing. It wasn't one of those things where it was like 50 patients, you know.
No, I think that's one thing too. Like on a quick aside, I think a lot of times we'll see in like Facebook groups, there's people who are like, I opened a practice and there were 100 people waiting outside the door, and it was this. It's like that. Maybe that happened for you. Great, you're doing something that we weren't able to do, which is awesome. But I don't think that's the norm. I think most people you got to grind out, and if people, it's just like anything on social media. Like you see these like pictures of people traveling here doing that, and you think like that's how everyone lives, and you know, you don't know how true that photo actually is, right, or their story. And I feel like we didn't have that, and we still were able to kind of figure it out.
But yeah, so pretty much, typical office, you know, it was beautiful. Like we didn't spend like a lot on the office. Like it wasn't, you know, the most expensive things or anything like that. We were very budget conscious, but it's still all brand new stuff. And literally 5 weeks after we opened, and I was open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like 7 to 7. It was a Tuesday or a Thursday, and one of the contractors who was just finishing up a couple of things in the office called me up and was like, Alex, your office is literally flooding with shit right now. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you need to get here right away. And luckily I was living in an apartment complex in like the same parking lot as the office, like 1 minute away. So I ran, and I don't run. I ran to the office, and he was there, and I opened the door, and it just reeked of crap, pretty much, right?
Didn't you say
and we're getting in there, and I'm like, where's this coming from? And he's taking me over to the mechanical room where there was this like a drainage pipe, and all this stuff was coming up. And we're gagging at each other, trying to explain. Like, he's like, I think it's coming from here. And we're like, it's like so gross. Like, this is the worst thing ever. And I'm like, my new floor, and it's like seeping up into the drywall and stuff.
Yeah, you're just like slowly watching.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, what is happening? How is this happening? And like, we didn't know what to do. And pretty much like we obviously had to hire phone a plumber and like a roto-rooter or whoever, and they came in, and they're like going through things and trying to figure out like where this is coming from, because like I was on the end of our like little strip mall, and so I was pretty much downwind of all the sewage. And if you think of like our strip mall, so we had it was Dunkin' Donuts, Subway, a liquor store, nail salon, and then me. So all of that stuff got blasted down to me. Like, I don't know how it worked. Like, if it was just like someone comes in for their morning donuts and coffee, and then like swings by for like their foot long at lunch, and then like after work drinks or something, and then somehow like they go take a dump at the nail salon or something like that. But it all literally was in my office. And like I have pictures I can share with you. And I was like, what the hell is this? So luckily we got it all cleaned up. It was the summer, so we had
so it was like open. Hot too. Yeah.
So it was like just gross. So we had the door fans on, trying to air this thing out. And my office is not big. Like, it was 1,300 square feet. So there was no place to hide.
You guys were already cozy to begin with. So
so like there was no place to hide. And we're just like, how do we clean this up? Because I'm like seeing like my 2 patients the next day. And I'm like, how am I supposed to explain this? Like reek smell to them. We've like sent air on candles, like all the stuff, trying to just get rid of the smell. But super stressful. And not a good not a good start to our brand new office. So
and what happened? Did you have to close the office for a while, and they had to clean everything up? And
It must have been a Thursday because we had the weekend to kind of clean it up and like just get it all like aired out and stuff like that. But the repair guys, like we had to deal with insurance and the repairs and stuff like that, like all over again. It was like brand new stuff.
Yeah.
And no, luckily we didn't have to reschedule anyone.
But what's worse, that smell or like, is it the eugenol smell that old dentist office used to always smell like? What would you prefer?
I've heard of offices closing due to hurricanes, fires, but that's a new one with the septic tank. I actually, my first year while I was at BU, I lived in my parents' basement, which is super depressing and sad. But I came home one day and we were downstream from a restaurant, and my whole basement little apartment was covered in septic. So it is not a pleasant smell. So congrats on overcoming that. Now, tell me about partnerships. Now, I asked you this earlier, but at any of these situations, did the two of you actually work together or partner together?
No, she probably couldn't handle working with me. I would annoy her within like 2 hours. That wouldn't work.
Well,
I would just bug her the whole time.
Well, yeah, I'd be like, why aren't you working?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, you're a crappy boss. And I'm like, yeah, it's sorry.
Yeah. Like, get to work. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I just hang out.
Yeah.
No, so we never really, I mean,
We
there
never
was
partnered together. No.
no, but there were days where like we would be at the office at the same time.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
not like regularly. It wasn't,
Mhm.
that was never the plan. It was kind of to have our own things because we thought like there's two of us. So
I'm my own person.
yeah, right. So yeah, and then that office though, so that first startup you had, that was actually a partnership office, like meaning she was not the sole owner of it.
I partnered with a other dentist who was a consultant, and the goal was to create like these little clusters of offices. So you were going to have like, I don't know, 5 to 10 offices in Denver or something like that, and I would run it clinically, and they would handle the business side. So they'd have 51%, I had 49. I think that's how the structure was, and they'd kind of be the money backed behind it, sort of thing. And we're like, great, that sounds good, because like we wanted multiple offices as well. And so they were going to take care of all like the business stuff, HR, accounting, all of that. I was just going to focus on like clinical. And after like a few weeks, like I started to notice like, okay, well, things aren't being like posted correctly, and like the accounting is a little messy and stuff like that. And so, and I don't like anyone like touching my money kind of thing. Like I like to know like where everything is.
Mhm.
And so I started to like look at the books and look at, okay, how things are done. I'm like, okay, let me just do this myself. Like, let me post this on the day of so that everything matches, like my end of day matches my like bank accounts and stuff like that. And so it started after a couple of months. I started to take so much of it over that I was doing like 90% of the work for only 49% of the ownership of it. Right. So I was like, okay, long term, this is not going to work. Like, I don't need you just to like help me with like hiring. Like, that's like not a thing. So we knew that, yeah, that wasn't really going to last.
Yeah, I remember you starting pretty early on saying, yeah, like this was good on paper, but I don't know if this is really going to work. And then kind of what ended up happening for us, like a little bit of a blessing in disguise, is that dentist ended up selling his company to a bigger company. And I mean, we didn't even know. I don't think he even told us. I think he told everyone like a phone call once. So like we got these new partners in, and they were pretty much like, hey, we kind of got forced into a marriage to each other. Our model isn't really what you guys want to do. It seems like what you guys want to do isn't what we want to do. Let's just figure out a way to split amicably. You can buy us out and it's all yours. And so like that actually was nice because we got a good deal on the rest of the 51%. It was and like easy split. And so then we became sole owners. And I mean, looking back, I'm so glad that actually happened. Because
the think of it was like, okay, how are we going to navigate this? Like, just we didn't know what we were doing. Like, we thought the partnership was going to be good, type of thing. And then it was like, okay, now we have to deal with lawyers to like unravel this thing. So that's like dealing with lawyers is like stressful. But so yeah, it was a pretty stressful, like little bit of a time, but yeah, glad that we were able to
Was that initial partner a non-practicing partner that you said they were a dentist, but also a consultant?
Yeah, like he is a dentist, but is a was like a consultant. So he wasn't like, his ownership was not tied to him being clinical or anything like that. Like he was in the state.
Yeah, he was just trying to build a big DSO, kind of thing. Oh yeah, that sounds good. We'll have Denver.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of drank the Kool-Aid a little bit, right? Just like a lot of people do. Especially when you come into it, I think sometimes knowing less, right? Being like maybe a newer grad or only a couple of years out. We don't have, huge business backgrounds when we get out of dental school, anything like that. And when you hear someone speak, sometimes you're like, oh, this person's an expert. Like, and they had
the money back behind them, like was, able to fund most of that startup that we did, kind of thing. So
then we felt like it took some risk off our end, but then that's when we kind of learned that, like, you take more of a risk, but then you get more of the reward. So if you have confidence in yourself and you feel like you can do it, sometimes it's worth it to take the risk, and because like you get more on the back end. And so that was a good lesson, I think, to learn pretty early on. But I mean, like you went through those two things probably within like the first like year and a half to 2 years of the startup. And so, everyone goes through situations that aren't ideal. I'm sure, Eric, you've gone through that through your practice ownership journey. Like everyone deals with crap all the time, like literal shit like we did. But like, you just have to continue to just persevere and get through it, and know that like if you're in that rut, like there's other people who have been in that same situation and became like either some people really successful too, right? And so you just push through it, and you just have to keep on going, because it's never an easy route. But yeah, I mean, you got through that.
Partnerships are tough. Me and my partner, we're 50-50, and it's like a business marriage. I mean, I see him just as much or maybe even more than my family sometimes, and they're not always easy, and we're different ages, different philosophies, but we are both, fully invested, wet-fingered practicing dentists. So, that's where we are.
You guys, we found with partnerships, because we've had some that have worked and some that are like kind of epically fail. And the problem becomes, even if on the front end, you're like, what's going to be our roles and responsibilities? Everyone in the beginning, you're in the dating phase. So everyone's like, I'm going to work really hard. You learn like 3 months in, 6 months in, if that's actually true. And so you just don't want to get into a situation like we were like in high school when you have a class project. I was the kid who never did the work, right? And it was always like some other kid that did 80% of it, and I just kind of mooched off them. And you don't want to be that in a partner. So like that was a lesson I had to learn earlier, or I'm glad I learned that earlier in my career. I wish I would have learned that in high school, but that has tended to happen to us sometimes, is that everyone in that dating phase is just like, this is awesome, we're going to make millions of dollars together. But then like when the work actually comes, you got to make sure that the other partner is invested as much as you are. So that's good that at least with yours, you guys are both wet finger dentists. You guys are on the same page. You guys are tied to the success of the practice. So I think that's awesome.
And we're both motivated to see the practice grow, and both are on the same page there. And I do apologize to my chemistry partner in high school. I was the same way. I just totally mooched. But it
was usually, for me, it was always like, I've always found, at least in high school, and maybe it's probably a generalization, but a lot of the, like, I guess still girls, right? Because you're still like 15, 16. They were always way better at like projects and managing things and actually doing the work. And I feel like it was like me and some of my like guy friends that were always the mooches. And it was always like a really smart girl that like pushed through the entire presentation and then would just get mad at us in the background. And that's probably why a lot of women hate men, is because we're just lazy.
That sounds about right. All right, we've talked about the septic, we've talked about partnerships. Tell me about some other issues that you had.
So those are just my office. So
Yeah,
we're like, let's continue.
Let's open another one. Yeah. No, I think we already signed something, so we were already in too deep.
Yeah, exactly.
Because my office, I would say probably 6 months after you started yours in 2017 is when I started to sign like documents. Yeah, we started looking and actually signed things that they're going to build this building and we need tenants. So, I already had my contract ready. It just took like a year plus for them to build the facility. So mine was like 30 miles away from Alex and more like the north suburbs, but same kind of concept, where maybe it was a 10,000 square foot site that had four or five tenants in it, right? So like a mini strip mall, just kind of by itself. And so my office was a little bit bigger than yours at first, a little bit more square footage, which we decided was probably a better idea than trying to cram 5 ops in like 1,300 square feet, right? That was tough. But so I opened in July of 2019. We just had our first kid. Wait, we opened end of June, and 2 weeks later we had our first kid. So like Alex was completely out of commission, and I was running this by myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I was doing. Like, she's definitely a better operator than I am. So that was.
I'm like, here's the playbook, and you're like, it's a coaster.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is not gonna be.
You're like, why are there coffee stains on this?
Yeah.
So I had to run that office, then help out with your startup while you were with the baby. And
I had an associate help.
And so anyways, so it was probably around, I think it was November timeframe. So we had been open for like 4 months. Things were going similar to how Alex's were. Like, we had those expectations, like you're not going to have 100 new patients right away. So nothing too crazy in the beginning, had my team. And then it was like mid-November, all of a sudden my front office called me and was like, we can't get in like to our computers. Like, everything's locked. It just says like, there's a sign that says like, your computers are locked. And not like the normal locked sign, like when you go into Windows. And so I got in there and I was like, this is weird. So I called my IT company. We were using like a local one in Denver, and they maybe had, I don't know, 50 offices or so in Denver. And they were like, yeah, we got hacked. Like the IT company got hacked, and it shot it out to every practice that they were associated with. And so they had done ransomware, right? So pretty much what that is they lock up all your data, and they have like a security key, and you have to pay them, and they'll give you the key to unlock your data. And so and we found this out like on a morning when we were supposed to see patients. So we were like, oh crap, what are we going to do? Like, I had to reschedule that entire day. And then I learned way more than I ever want to know about dealing with cyber attacks. Like, that's one thing that you're like, it's cool to hear a story about it. I never want to experience that one firsthand. Yeah. So what ended up happening is, quickly I called my insurance company. Luckily, I don't even remember having this. This is when I was happy that my was it through MedPro? I think, yeah. I'm happy that they convinced me to get like a writer for cybersecurity, because I don't even remember having it. But I had a insurance writer for cybersecurity for $50,000. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because we called the IT company, and the IT company left us kind of high and dry. It was kind of a big issue. They were just like, we're not going to pay the ransomware to them, because I think they wanted millions of bucks. And they were like, sorry guys, like, you guys are gonna have to figure this out on your own. And we're like, this wasn't even through us, this was through you guys, and we got affected by it. And so that was a whole separate ordeal. So anyways, I ended up, over the next like 2 to 3 weeks, we were able to go paper, and so we were able to still see patients, but like the flow sucked. Like, we were able to get a like light version of our open dental back up, but we couldn't access old charts, anything. That was all locked up. We could kind of start anew.
And luckily it was only like 4 months worth of.
Yeah, so it wasn't a ton of patients. So like other offices that were open for like 10 years, that had to have sucked. But yeah, anyways, I was on calls with cybersecurity attorneys. We were talking with like people who negotiate against these like cyber terrorists. And it took about a month and a half. And finally they negotiated with these guys. They were somewhere in like Eastern Europe. And they were able to pay the ransom, and we got our stuff back. Luckily, the great thing was they didn't take any patient data, because I heard they didn't want to, because then that opens them up to like way more litigation, these like cyber terrorists. So we didn't have to, send letters out to patients, because no information was actually taken, which is awesome. But yeah, it ended up, they used the entire $50,000 between attorneys and all that. And think about that. These like cyber terrorist guys got that from me. And if there were 50 offices, and I'm a smaller one, I mean, they probably made bank on that, which is nuts. So that was crazy. So we got
super stressful. Yeah.
We got through that. And then I'm sure if you guys were paying attention to the dates, we opened in 2019, and then March of 2020 is when like COVID happened. Right. So, 8 months in, COVID hits.
Yeah.
And so that was also an awesome time. So, we were like, oh God, what are we gonna do? Like, I just went through like a cyber attack, like, we got through that, but we're still trying to grow the office, and now we can't even grow the office.
Yeah, and like now I own my office 100%. I'm like, God damn it,
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's like all these things.
Yeah.
And then COVID, and we're like, you have to shut down.
Yeah. So then the one lesson that we learned in COVID, I had talked before to some buddies, and they just led us onto this concept of like, just do what everyone else, or do the opposite of what everyone else is doing, right? So we're like, all right, well, it's COVID, everyone else is shut. What do we see going on? The office down the street is closed down fully, right? Another office, the dentist was just like, I'm gonna retire. I don't want to deal with this stuff. And we're like, okay, so we can either see this as like a challenge where we're screwed, or we can see it as an opportunity. And we're like, okay, we can be open for emergencies. Yeah. We can be open as much as we're allowed to be open. Let's just double down. Let's go really hard on marketing for emergencies. Let's make signs, these, big ass 10-foot by, 20-foot signs that we can just stake out right on our intersection and tell everyone.
We said emergencies welcome, like
yeah.
we're open, or
yeah.
still seeing patients or whatever it was. So like legally, whatever we were able to do, we obeyed the law.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were like,
and honestly, like
every emergency
yeah.
patient.
So like in Colorado, it was like March 15th, right? When everything like officially shut down. I think we were closed until beginning of May, and then they started to lighten up stuff a little bit. By June, July, we had like the best month we ever had ever at either office. And we were like, okay, so this actually, like this philosophy or this concept actually worked.
Well, yeah, because we furloughed everyone, right? Yeah. Like we had to, and we took our phone, like we had a Mango phone, and we took it home and plugged it in. And I was answering calls, and so was Eric, and we were scheduling people, and they're like, "Hey, I have this toothache." I'm like, "Okay, can you be there in like 30 minutes?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "All right, I'll drive to the office, or you'll drive, or whatever it was."
I mean, and you were doing this with like a 8 or 9 month old.
Yeah, I had a baby, so it was kind of, it was like, yeah, but just depending on like what it was, if it was like, oh, I have this toothache, if it was an extraction or something, I'd go in. If it was something else, Eric would go in, and we would just tag team.
Oh yeah, because Alex does like to do more procedures than I do.
Yeah. But yeah, we made that work. We just brought the phone home, and we're like, we're not gonna stop. We're gonna keep doing this, and those patients, stayed with the office afterwards. So yeah,
that's great. You made the best of it. Personally, similar. We actually saw COVID as an opportunity to change some things, and that's when we started to go out of network, and just took control of our schedule, because people, either weren't working, or they had, they're working from home, or now I still feel it, with people having a hybrid schedule. We can get patients in when we want them to come in, and not just, 8 in the morning or 4 p.m. So, one of the kind of the silver linings of COVID, but it sounds like you two have made the best of some crazy situations. Let's
Yeah, and I mean, what you were saying too is that we adjusted our schedule because when we both opened our starts, we were 7 to 7, 3 days a week, because that's what we were kind of taught, is you're open early and open late for that. But when COVID hit, it was kind of nice, because like you said, people still have these hybrid work schedules, and like I was able to a year ago change Fridays to Thursdays. And so that was nice, because now we all had 3-day weekends. It didn't affect anything. I thought it was. So I was like, oh, some people are off on Fridays. They may not want to, that's a good day for them to come in. But with everyone working remote, they didn't care. And like, you don't have to be open as early or as late anymore, because people have more flexibility in their schedule, and they don't want to get up at 7 in the morning.
What works for the office.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of have to set the boundaries of like, we're not going to schedule this way. We're not going to give them like, when do you want to come in? It's like, hey, my next available is, 8 o'clock on Tuesday, or 2:40 on Wednesday, or whatever. When do you want to come in? We give them those options.
Now let's start to wrap things up with just the overall work-life balance, of being a dentist, having a family, being a married couple as dentists. Do you have like a rule, like when you get home, there's no tooth talk? Like, just tell me about that work-life balance.
Yeah, well, I don't set boundaries. Like we talk about dentistry and about business because we love it. Like we love talking about the business aspect and like how our day was and stuff. So it doesn't ever stop for us. Like I don't ever say, I don't want to talk here. I don't want to hear about your day or anything like that. No, it's we enjoy it. So I mean, I have my thoughts on like work-life balance and how it like really doesn't exist. Like and we put these constraints on ourselves, and it kind of creates added stress. But it work and life aren't separated. To me, it's the same. Like my work is part of my life and my life is part of my work. And if I'm loving what I'm doing, it's good, and I try not to think about work-life balance on like a daily occasion. It's like, okay, today was I, spent too much time on work and not enough time with my kids, or too, I don't think like that because that's just going to be stressful no matter what. I kind of like to take a step back and think, okay, like here's this at a monthly view or quarterly view or yearly view. It's like, okay, did I focus 12 months out of 12 months on work and like 0 months on my kids? Like, no, of course not. So when you look at it from like a higher level, like looking out in, things kind of balance themselves, I think. And then you look and you're like, oh yeah, like I was there for, my kids, gymnastics thing, and I was there for this thing. And like, oh yeah, my practice grew because I was focused on those things. So I don't like to look at it on like a daily thing like that, or else you'll just be craziness in your life for no reason. So that's kind of how I balance things kind of in life.
Yeah, because Eric, what are your thoughts? Because I know a lot of your philosophy and how you've grown and gotten an audience with everything. A lot of it is right. It's like the stress-free podcast. So I wanted to know too on your thoughts on that too, and how you tackle stress and what you recommend like dentists to do.
Yeah. So, personally, I went through a tremendous amount of burnout halfway through my career. And I finally picked up the phone. I called a local therapist and I started going through therapy. And it was all up here. It was me just putting too much pressure on myself, being a perfectionist. And it didn't happen overnight, but I got back to the point where I love going into work every day. But it's the understanding that you're not going to be free of stress, that there's going to be ups and downs. You're going to get bad reviews. You're going to have difficult conversations. You're going to have upset patients. Um, this is part of the profession that we chose. It's not an easy profession. Um, and to understand that there's going to be stress and that the stress won't break me. That's really the mantra, is that I'm going to have a bad day sometimes. I'm going to get home and I'm going to be just junk. But I'll come back tomorrow and I'm going to come back and have at it again. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. And to focus on I used to get so focused on the one negative thing that happened during the day, and I just couldn't shake that. I would be up at night thinking about it. And through therapy and coaching, I've even been through hypnotherapy and some prescribed medications. I was able to get past that, and I now focus on the good things that happen, and I don't beat myself up when things, don't go my way.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a struggle. It's a struggle for me too because I think a lot of us as dentists, right? Like you had to be a high achiever to get into dentistry, right? Like there's a pretty big moat to get into dental school. So like a lot of us probably were kids that you got A's on your report cards, right? And you had all this stress and pressure. And for me, I still struggle and I'm not good with it, is like you said, I have an unrealistic expectation that everything has to happen perfectly. And when one thing doesn't happen perfectly, it can ruin your day, right? Like you said, you end up focusing on that one negative. So instead of just being able to let things kind of bounce off sometimes and saying, yeah, I got that one bad review, or this extraction took longer than I thought, or this didn't maybe go as I wanted to have it. Like, just don't let that overwhelm. It's easier said than done because I still suck at it. But like, just you can't let that overwhelm because you can't give yourself an unrealistic expectation that everything is just going to be easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And if you want to be different and you want to be great, then you have to do things that other people aren't doing, right? Like that's like Alex, you're big on that too.
Yeah.
I think that everything you just said, a lot of times we have this path, in high school, college, dental school, you try hard, you study hard, you try to do well, you try to be perfect, you get good grades, you pass your boards, you graduate. We have a path, and you just keep working harder and harder. And if something doesn't go right, you study harder. But then we get in the real world, and it's reality. You're working on real patients in a real business. And sometimes people get a taste for the first time of failure. They've never tasted failure. And all of a sudden they got a bad review, or that crown didn't fit and the patient's pissed off, or there's two team members fighting in the lunchroom. Um, and my response is to every dentist is that, guess what? this has happened to every other dentist in the history of dentistry in the world. So you're not alone. Don't beat yourself up. And there's such a, a power in engaging with your peers, listening to podcasts like what you're doing, and reaching out for help, whether it's a consultant, a coach, a therapist, a mentor, or peers, whatever it takes. Don't go into this profession alone. Um, and also with me, I call it the three T's, techniques, treatments, and technology. I keep adding something new. If I just kept doing the same old thing over and over, and I was on that hamster wheel of dentistry doing the same thing, I never would have overcame my burnout. But I've added clear aligners, I've added sleep and airway, 3D printer, same day milling, AI, low level laser, whatever it is, I just keep adding, I keep re-energizing myself. And that's really how I've continued to overcome burnout. Um, Now, I just wanted to wrap up with two final questions. Number one is, how do we find out more about what you're both up to? And then number two, just some quick advice for the young dentist out there.
Well, I can take the first one because you're probably better giving advice than
Sure.
honest. I mean, on us, I mean, we try to be a little more active on like social media and stuff like that too. So like you can, I mean, I'm usually on Facebook a lot. So like just friend request me, you can DM me. I try to annoy people in all the groups, right, that are there. And try to be active in those two. That's probably the
So yeah,
best
you
way.
can definitely go onto our website, coupleofdentists.com, subscribe. I have a newsletter on there, subscribe to that. But yeah, just find Eric on Facebook, and I'm usually around there also.
Yeah.
As for question number two, advice, I mean, I think of stress a little differently, but and this is what works for me. So if it doesn't work for you, then like I'm not the expert, but I try to reframe it as stress is not a bad thing. Like it can actually be a good thing. Like it has given me the skills to pursue other things in life. And I think the biggest thing too is like know what your goals are, know what your priorities are, because the stress comes from feeling overwhelmed sometimes. You're like, I have way too much stuff going on. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. It's just kind of overwhelming. So if you have a priority, like you have to make something a priority, and that's literally putting something above all the other things, putting it prior to, right? So I found that creating a list, and I know Eric's done this and it has helped.
Oh yeah, it has.
I did that the night before, like the night before, the next day, write down just your priority of like what you need to do. It's not going to be 50 things. There are definitely 50 things you need to do. Don't write 50 things down. Write the one thing you're going to do. And then in the morning, you're not going to feel stressed like, oh my gosh, I have this and this and this and this. And then your whole day kind of gets shot and your mind just keeps going, and just focus on that one thing. And when you get it done, great. You had a good day. And then the next day, do another thing. So I think it's just not feeling that overwhelm, prioritizing what needs to happen. And I think that's something that anyone can do. Like you don't need to, you know.
Oh yeah,
I just think that's
yeah, like honestly, that one thing she kind of gave that to me because I don't manage stress as well as she does, and just waking up in the morning and not having to think about spending a half hour like, oh, what do I have to do? I forgot. If you just regroup at the end of the night, it's almost like doing like an end of the day huddle right at your office. You kind of regroup on your day. You say, what do I need to focus on? You write that down before you go to bed, and then you just, for me, like I've been doing this for like a few weeks. I'll wake up the next morning like just way more refreshed because I'm like, I didn't go to bed in a stressed state because I feel like I took care of myself in the morning by doing it the night before. And so, yeah, it's been huge.
Love it. Great advice and a great episode. Dr. Alex Kantor and Dr. Eric Applesies, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks again for listening to the Stress Free Dentist podcast. And don't hesitate to get in touch with me at info@thestressfreedentist.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Until the next episode, I'm Dr. Eric Block, the Stress Free Dentist.